New York, big city of dreams, and everything in New York ain't always what it seems.
Working, take 10 steps and turn and shoot the first.
New York video.
Indeed.
A shooting happened during that video.
Totally. That's why we kicked over everything that we could think of.
It had to be at least about a mile and a half away. They were sniping into the trailer, whoever it was.
When it comes to hip-hop infamy, Snoop Dogg's name has popped up more times than we can count. But when he dropped the video for New York, New York, he ended up stepping on the wrong toes, putting himself right in the sights of some of New York's toughest gangs.
Tupac, Snoop, and Dogg Pound was shooting a music video in New York, and Snoop and Dogg Pound trailer ended up getting shot up. What exactly happened?
That was just people that knowing that they were shooting a video there, and they felt like it was like this in New York, and that was just New York people, just like, you know, taking it on their own decisions.
Back in the 90s, the East Coast versus West Coast rivalry was already at a boiling point, and Snoop wasn't just some bystander, he was right in the middle of the storm, making waves. Then, just when things were already intense, he and Dogg Pound dropped the New York, New York track, and let's just say it did not sit well with the New York crowd. Gangs took it as a straight-up diss and clapped back with their own track.
Emmanuel, rock and morale, government out to get me, trying to stick me.
Now that was just a spark in what was about to get down. When Snoop and his crew rolled up to Brooklyn to shoot the video, word is they got attacked.
New York video.
Indeed.
A shooting happened during that video.
Totally. That's why we kicked over everything that we could think of.
And from there, things only spiraled downhill. So how bad did it really get? Let's dive in. Flashback to September 1995, Dogg Pound dropped their 4th track off their debut album, Dog Food New York, New York. The track stirred up some serious wild controversy, leaving the streets of New York wilding.
Everybody was kind of, I guess, hearing about them shooting these videos, and they was hearing about them knocking down buildings and like that. That was just like a natural thing of just being from the borough. That was just people that knowing that they were shooting a video there, and they felt like it was like this in New York.
According to Kurupt, though, that beat was actually his first before Biggie jumped on it. DJ Pooh had originally given it to him, and he had been sitting on it, planning to make history with it. But then Biggie's St. Ides commercial dropped.
What he drinking? The cookie letter. No other beer feel better. I used to be a hustler.
This time, Kurupt realized he needed to move fast before his beat slipped away. The very next day, he hit the studio, laid down his verse, and while they were vibing, Snoop came in singing the classic New York, New York hook. DJ Pooh immediately knew they had something special and told Snoop to lay it down officially. Just like that, an instant classic was born, and Kurupt finally got to showcase his lyrical skills. But nobody could have predicted what happened next. By the time the music video was in the works, tension between Death Row and Bad Boy was reaching new levels. Word got out that Biggie had allegedly gone on a New York radio station, encouraging locals to take issue with Dogg Pound shooting a video in their city. According to Kurupt's recent account, he claimed Biggie called the host of Hot 97 and said, "What's happening, ninja? Red Hook, wop 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 are shooting a video. Brooklyn, stand up." Not long after, their production trailers in Brooklyn's Red Hook neighborhood were hit with gunfire.
Biggie go like, what's happening? Red Hook, whoop whoop whoop, shooting a video. Brooklyn, stand up. We don't know what that means. We think coming to show some love.
And we really do feel that Biggie incited that.
I agree.
Yeah.
Completely. You get on the radio and you tell
them, hey, how we allowing them to film? They over there at such and such location filming this in New York.
What I know is that he got on the radio because everybody was talking about it. And he was like, he was saying like, he was asking Brooklyn how they was gonna let that happen. How you gonna let them come disrespect, you know, New York like that and everything? And then their van got shot up.
Luckily, no one got hurt, but that whole situation flipped the script for Snoop, Kurupt, and Daz. They had to rethink everything, including their original idea for the music video, and just like that, hip-hop history took a whole new turn. See, at first they wanted to show love to New York, maybe even get artists like Nas in the mix as a tribute.
We could let everybody in New York know, nigga, we brought our lowriders out here, we shooting a video, all the New York rappers come with us, we out here, come be a part of this video.
Where they didn't, Snoop and the Dogg Pound still to this day don't believe they were dissing New York because they figured they was paying homage to New York.
But after catching bullets instead of vibes, that idea went straight out the window. Kurupt later joked about how New Yorkers weren't having it at all, saying they was like, "Oh no, you ain't gonna shoot this Shia out here dissing us." So after all that chaos, they packed up, flew back to LA, and Snoop made the call. Forget that, we're switching it up. That's when they scrapped the original concept and went all in on something way more aggressive, adding those now iconic scenes of them stomping through the city, towering over buildings, and literally crushing New York skyscrapers under their feet. And of course, the New York peeps weren't about to just let that slide. They clapped back, hard. Capone and Noriega, Mobb Deep, and Tragedy Khadafi teamed up to drop LA, LA the following year.
Emmanuel, rock and morale, government out to get me, trying to stick me.
This wasn't just a diss track, it was a statement. They flipped the exact beat from New York, New York, and came through with a video that took things to another level. Instead of just rapping about it, they made it visual, showing members of Tha Dog Pound getting K-napped and beaten, a clear message that they weren't backing down.
Fool if you come from out of town, cause we coming from Queens, it gets down. LA.
At this point, the whole East versus West thing wasn't just about music anymore, it was bigger than that. The energy had shifted, and the tension was real. But to really understand how it got this wild, we have to rewind to one night, one moment that sent shockwaves through hip-hop, the Source Awards at the Madison Square Garden.
Check it out.
That night in 1995, Suge Knight stepped on stage, looked straight into the crowd, and threw the boldest shade at Puff Daddy, Bad Boy Records, and anyone else who thought they were running the game. See, both Death Row and Bad Boy were walking away with awards that night, but the tension wasn't behind closed doors anymore. It was officially out in the open. Suge didn't hold back. He got up there and hit Puff with the now iconic line. To all you artists out there who don't want to be on a record label where the executive producers, all up in the videos, all on the records, dancing, then come to Death Row.
Any artist out there want to be an artist and want to stay a star and don't want to have to worry about the executive producer trying to be all in the videos, all on the record, dancing, come to Death Row.
Yeah. People definitely caught that, and if things weren't heated enough, Snoop Dogg made sure they were. When the East Coast crowd wasn't showing much love to the Death Row crew, Snoop snapped. The East Coast ain't got no love for Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg and Death Row. Y'all don't love us, so we'll let it be known then. We don't give an F. We know y'all East Coast. We know where the F we at.
The East Coast don't love Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg. The East Coast ain't got no love for Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg and Death Row. Y'all don't love us? Y'all don't love us!
The crowd wasn't feeling it at all. Boos rang out across the arena. It was clear that this wasn't just friendly competition anymore. Puff tried to cool things down at the end of the show, going up on stage and calling for unity, saying the whole East versus West thing needed to stop. But by then, it was too late. The fans had already picked sides, and suddenly it wasn't just music, it was war. Things only got worse a month later. Suge Knight and Puff Daddy both showed up at Jermaine Dupri's birthday party at Platinum House in Atlanta, and tensions followed them right out the door. Outside the club, a fight broke out between their entourages, and Suge's close friend, Jai Big Jake Robles, who was also affiliated with the Bloods, was shot and killed while getting into a limousine.
I remember at one point, Suge's homie gets killed in Atlanta.
Jake.
Yeah. You knew him?
Yeah.
Friend of yours?
Yeah.
Okay.
Big Jake, yeah.
Suge wasted no time pointing fingers, claiming Puff had something to do with it. But this battle didn't just start there. To really get how deep this all goes, we have to rewind even further, back to '92, when the West Coast was flipping the rap game on its head in a way no one saw coming. Back then, if you wanted to make it big, you had to play by the industry's rules and go through one of the major record labels. But Suge Knight, he wasn't about to do that. Instead, he built his own empire, Death Row Records. And when Dr. Dre and the DOC decided they were done with NWA and Ruthless Records, Death Row became their new home.
I got some prove because right at that time I had just left Ruthless. I broke up with Easy and shit. So everybody was like, oh, he ain't gonna be able to do shit without NWA. Right. So I just took all that shit that everybody was saying.
Okay. And so Dre and I began to focus as a unit on other things.
Okay. By that time, you and Suge were already close.
Yeah, Suge and I were already.
That same year, Dre dropped The Chronic, and that album was a problem. Not only did it put West Coast gangsta rap on top, but it also took subtle jabs at Tim Dog. The album exploded, went triple platinum, and let's just say, The East Coast wasn't exactly celebrating. Then Snoop Dogg came through, following up with some of the most disrespectful lyrics hip-hop had ever seen at that time. Meanwhile, over on the East Coast, Bad Boy Records was just getting started. Sean Puffy Combs was betting big on the Notorious B.I.G. and Craig Mack. And just like that, the East was back in business. And at first, no beef, no problems, just two coasts making big moves. But let's take it a little back in the year, when things were still cool. At this point, Tupac was already famous, but more because of poetic justice than his music.
Now you kinda quiet, huh?
Biggie, on the other hand, had some buzz, but wasn't a household name just yet. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Pac was on the set of Poetic Justice, vibing when he started playing a Biggie track, Party and Bullshit Tea.
For me to start something, bugging and bucking that nigga like I was dumbing out just me and my crew.
And guess who just so happens to be visiting the set at that moment? Biggie himself. Now, back then, East Coast rappers weren't sure how they'd be received in the West, but instead of any tension, Pac just shows him love, says he's a fan. Next thing you know, he's inviting Biggie and his crew over to his place, grilling barbecue, and setting up a friendly East versus West rap battle, just for fun.
You ready? Yeah. Ready for that raw dog? Okay, all right. Let me see how I'm gonna hit you with. You wanna set it off? Yeah, I'm scared to do some freestyle.
Even Biggie admitted later that they clicked instantly. It was all love. Later that year, Pac flew to New York, and they even performed together. Everything was cool until November 30th, 1994. By this time, things had already started shifting. Pac had a legal case in New York and had to be in court on October 1st, so he flew out there. Word got around that he was in town, and Bad Boy's own Lil Sean invited him to the studio to lay down a verse. So Pac pulls up to Quad Studios, steps into the elevator, then boom, 3 guys are waiting for him, demanding his jewelry.
Tupac comes back into the story, gets robbed, shot, Quad Studios. You saw Tupac coming in the building, correct?
Yeah.
What was going on?
I'm looking over and I see like a few dudes walking down the block. I see the bandana. He's always wearing that bandana. I'm like, and of course we've been hanging around him a few times. You know what I mean? So I know when I see him. But Nino, crazy, Nino heard the shots before we got downstairs. He was like, "Yo, you heard that shit?" I was like, "Nah, I don't hear nothing, but I know Pac got some bomb weed, my nigga."
A struggle breaks out. Shots are fired. The men take off, leaving Pac bleeding in the lobby, waiting for an ambulance. And here's where it gets real. Biggie and Puffy rush downstairs to check on him, but instead of accepting their concern, Pac flips them off while being wheeled away.
We went downstairs. That's when the police was taking everybody, grabbing you, pulling you to the side, getting your information, saying Tupac got shot. And that was it from there. We stayed downstairs, gave him all that information, and that's when they welled them out.
He survived, but from that moment on, everything changed. Biggie and Puffy swore up and down that they had nothing to do with it, claiming they had no idea what was going to happen. But let's be real, how did those guys know exactly when and where to catch Pac? Somebody from the Bad Boy camp had to have tipped them off, and that's exactly how Tupac saw it. But before he could really put the pieces together, things got even worse. Just a few days later, he caught another case and ended up locked up. And in true Pac fashion, he showed up to court anyway, refusing to delay it, even though he was in a wheelchair, still recovering from the shooting.
Excuse us, man. Just keep it tight. That's all. Mr. Shakur, how are you this morning? No problem.
And then came the alleged Biggie diss track, the ugliest. That's when everything really went off the rails. Sitting in Rikers Island, Tupac did an interview with Kevin Powell and straight up called out Biggie and Puffy, basically saying he knew they had something to do with the setup at Quad Studios. That now famous quote, "I know who got me." Biggie kept trying to downplay the situation. Puffy even went as far as visiting Pac in jail, personally trying to convince him that Bad Boy had nothing to do with the shooting. But let's be real, Pac wasn't trying to hear it, and neither was the West Coast. And then came the game changer. Suge went across the country, posted a $1.4 million as bond, and got Tupac out of prison. He didn't just send a check. He personally flew out, picked Pac up from Clinton Correctional Facility in a limousine, and brought him straight into the Death Row family. And just like that, the Bad Boy versus Death Row feud had a new front man. A few months later, Tupac decided to blow the whole thing wide open. He already knew Biggie and Faith Evans were having problems. They had even separated for a while. So what does Pac do? He reaches out to Faith, tells her he's a fan, and says he wants her on a track. Now back then, you couldn't just email verses back and forth. You had to physically be in the studio together. So Faith meets up with Pac. They take a picture, and they record the song. Allegedly, Pac even offers her $25,000 for the feature. Seems like a normal collab, right? Well, here's where it gets messy. Faith claims that after she did the feature, Pac refused to pay her. And according to her, he told her she could only get her money if she did something else with him, in the other room.
You were owed $25,000 for the session, and you said that you went to Pac's hotel room, and you know, he basically asked for oral at that point.
In a very surprising and offensive way, for sure. But I mean, by that time, I think it was, you know, it was pretty clear to me that
she says she refused. Pac, on the other hand, had a very different version of events, and he made sure the whole world knew about it on Hit 'Em Up. That one brutal line, "I effed your wife," one of the most savage bars in rap history. And you know that cut Biggie deep.
Westside, when we ride, come equipped with game. You claim to be a player, but I f***ed your wife.
Rumor has it, Biggie confronted Faith, straight up asking if it was true. To this day, she insists nothing ever happened.
I started kind of figuring it out. I started figuring it out like right there, like, okay. So, I mean, I played it off and played it cool.
But a lot of fans still aren't convinced. Either way, this was no longer just music beef. This was full-on war. Although, by '96, Tupac wasn't just beefing. He was now on a mission. He felt untouchable. Or maybe he just stopped caring. No security, no backing down from anyone. But that mentality, it was going to cost him. September 7th, 1996, Las Vegas, Nevada. The city is buzzing, the lights are flashing, and Tupac is flying in for a Mike Tyson fight, ready to have a wild night. But before he even makes it to the event, he stops by a party, and that's where things take a turn. Now, if you know anything about the streets, you know the Southside Crips don't play around. These guys have been at war with Suge Knight's Mob Piru Bloods for years, and as the whole East versus West feud started heating up, Diddy had even reached out to them for protection through a man named Zip.
So Puffy elected to, you know, let's align ourselves with these street guys, you know, with Zip. And then through Zip came Keefy.
Yeah, Zip and Keefy were the ones that had the relationship.
So when Pac crosses paths with them that night, it's already tense. But Tupac, he's never been one to back down. He thinks one of them disrespected him. And just like that, he swings first, and not just on anybody. He drops Orlando Baby Lane Anderson, one of the most feared names out of Compton, right there, in the middle of a Vegas casino, with the whole world watching.
Shirt, along with marrying Suge Knight, who's a large man in a brown suit, punching and kicking Orlando Anderson.
Now let's be real. Orlando just got humiliated in front of everybody, and there was no way he was about to let that slide. Fast forward a few hours, the Tyson fight ends, and Pac is hyped up, talking trash, riding that adrenaline rush like only he could. He and Suge leave the arena, hop into Suge's black BMW, and start cruising down the Las Vegas Strip. The night is still young, and then a car pulls up beside them. Shots fired. And just like that, it's over.
He's coming up from Mingo and got to the light. We was gonna go drink and smoke some weed, and he happened to be hanging out the window. He's hanging out the window like he was in a parade.
Tupac.
Yeah, he was.
So what happens next?
And we just came, and I ain't gonna go into the details like that.
I gave it to Dre, and Dre was like, no. And Lane's like, dude, pop it.
So Orlando shot across Dre?
He leaned over on the window, he rolled down the window, popped.
And of course, all eyes turn to one person, Biggie. With the bad blood between them already making headlines, people don't need much convincing. The rumors start flying. Was this retaliation? Did Bad Boy have something to do with it? Everybody's looking for someone to blame. And Biggie, he's right in the middle of it. But Biggie had his own fate waiting for him. On March 7th, 1997, 6 months after Tupac's murder, Biggie lands in LA for the Soul Train Awards. But let's just say the city is not giving him a warm welcome. The crowd lets him have it, booing him like he personally pulled the trigger on Pac. And to make things worse, All Eyes on Me wins Hip Hop Album of the Year, rubbing salt into an already open wound.
And the Soul Train Music Award goes to Me Against the World, Tupac!
But Biggie, he brushes it off, keeps that cool, unfazed attitude, at least on the outside. And then, just 2 days later, March 9th, 1997. Now the streets, they're buzzing, tension is thick, and everyone knows it. But Biggie, he's moving like it's just another day. And here's where it gets real. Compton police get a tip that Biggie Smalls is hanging out at South Park, right in the heart of Southside Crip territory. Normally, that kind of tip would have cops swarming the area, sirens blaring. But this time, nothing. They don't even bother rolling up. And why would they? This isn't the first time Biggie's been seen around that crowd. He's got connections. Keef D is in his circle. So to them, it's just another night, no reason to get involved. But on the streets, the whispers are getting louder. Word is, Biggie owes somebody money. Who? Why? Nobody really knows. But whatever it is, the debt hasn't been paid. And in this world, debts don't just disappear. Still, Biggie keeps it moving. He's got places to be, and he's not about to let a few rumors slow him down. That night, he heads to a Vibe magazine party. Big event packed with celebrities. The kind of night where the music is loud, the drinks are flowing, and for a few hours, you can forget about everything else. Then 1 a.m. rolls around. Biggie leaves the party, hops into his SUV, and starts cruising down Wilshire Boulevard. It's a quiet night, nothing seems out of the ordinary. And then a black Chevy Impala pulls up beside him, window down, gun out. Before anyone can react, it's over.
As Biggie's vehicle pulled out, it was being driven by one of the bodyguards, and as they pulled towards the light at the intersection, a vehicle pulled up alongside.
The gangster rap world has been shaken again, this time by the violent death of the performer known as Notorious B.I.G.
The rapper was rushed to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. He was pronounced dead a short time later.
And just like that, hip-hop lost another icon. Another young black man taken too soon. Another life cut short by gun violence. The whole hip-hop world felt the shock, and the deja vu was chilling. Just 6 months after Tupac, another artist gunned down in his car. Another feud turned fatal. Another tragic ending that felt all too familiar.